We'll now take a look at a couple of rules that help improve the form and the style of our code. All the rules that we're going to talk about here are to make coding easier, not harder. We want to make it easier to read. We want to make it easier to follow. So if we don't follow these rules, our program will still compile and run just fine. The computer will understand it perfectly, but it may be more difficult for us to understand. So let me give you an example. So let's say I have this line of code. So I have two variables declared on separate lines. Let's say I come up with a different way of handling this. Let's say I do something like this, where I do int a and int b on the same line. Both of these are correct, but which one's easier to read? Well, the first one. So normally if you're going to have multiple declaration statements, you would do one declaration statement per line. If we wanted to declare a and b on the same line, you would use commas. So we would do something like int a, comma, b, semicolon, if we wanted to declare them both in the same line. But the first line is a lot easier to read than the second one. Let's take a look at another example. So let's say I have the following 3 lines of code. Which one would be the best approach? So think about that for a second. Well, the first 2 statements are technically correct. The second line, syntactically there isn't any issue. It may be a little bit more difficult to read, so the first line is probably better than the second one, but they are both correct. The extra spacing that's between the int and the a in that second line here, this part right here, is pretty useless. I mean, it doesn't really serve any purpose than just adding in that extra spacing. Now, the third statement itself, that's just completely wrong. This does not work at all. That's a compiler error. Java doesn't know what int a is. I don't know what int a is, but you need to have some spacing there. So I would say that the first line is the best of the 3. So the next set of rules we'll take a look at involve indentation. Now, the purpose of indentation is to make our code easier to read, to make it easier to understand which statements are part of which methods or which classes. So I mean, it lets us know what is considered as part of a class, what's part of a method, what's part of different types of statements. So let me give you an example of code that's not indented. And yes, I have actually seen students write code like this before. Now you can take a look at it, and if you go line by line, you can probably figure out what this program is doing. But it's really difficult to read. So I mean, what is inside the class example here, and what is actually inside main, and what's inside of what? It's really difficult to understand. It's even straining the eyes. Just by looking at it, it hurts my eyes. This is not the proper way of writing code. So the rule of thumb is we should always indent statements that are inside a pair of curly braces. So if I have a pair of curly braces, whatever goes inside there should be indented by one notch, one space, one tab, whatever you want to call it, but it should be indented in some fashion. And you should also include line spacing to separate parts of a program. That way you can kind of separate the different parts. So your declaration statement should be one part. Maybe you have some input part that should be separated by spaces. Then maybe you have some computation, then you have some output, but separate all those into statements so we can see what's actually going on instead of trying to squint our eyes and see what's happening. So let's take the same code from before and let's take a look at what happens when we apply indentation. This looks much nicer, much nicer. So I can see that I have all this code that's inside the example class, and then I have so much code inside my main method because I included indentation in between curly braces. And then I've included some spacing between the different parts of my program. So here in this section, right here, I have my declaration statements. This part right here takes care of inputting the stuff for A. So I asked the user to enter A. I use a next line or next in, statement. And then this part right here takes care of inputting B. And then this part right here takes care of my output. So this is a much nicer, much neatly organized way of writing the code. The last thing we'll take a look at in this lecture are some different types of assignment statements. So we already talked about the 5 basic arithmetic operators, but there are also what we call compound operators. So all these simply do is take our values on the right-hand side and then automatically combine them into what's on the left-hand side. So we have plus equals, minus equals, we have multiply equals or asterisk or star equals, slash equals, and percent equals. So here's what these all do. We take the value that's on the left-hand side, and then we update it with the expression that's on the right-hand side, depending on which operator we use. So let me give you an example so you can see what's going on here. So let's say we have x and y be integer variables. And let's say I want to do x equals x plus y. We can rewrite this as x plus equals y. So what we're really doing here is if I have some variable on the left-hand side and some variable on the right-hand side, these compound operators are just saying take those two values and use whatever operator we're doing with it and then store that back into the left-hand side variable. So in this case, we're basically just updating x by taking its current value and either incrementing it by y, decreasing it by y, multiplying it by y, dividing by y, or taking the remainder of dividing it by y. So it's just a way of updating the current value that's in the left-hand side.